all the time in the world.
Beast Boy. Is Beast Boy appropriative? Is he appropriating? You know the Beast Boy I'm talking about?
Yes, I know the Beast Boy.
He's in
you're
the Teen
talking
Titans,
about.
and he's going to be
green.
in the. No, I know that. Yeah, that Beast Boy. But I mean, like, he's going to be in the Teen Titans movie.
Yep.
Which I feel like a lot of people hate that cartoon.
Yeah.
I like it fine. I don't think it's
I like
fantastic. I like watching it in whenever I stay somewhere in a hotel.
Yeah.
I always watch it, but I don't like watch it at home. But he's always hanging out with Cyborg, and he wants to eat burritos or tacos or whatever, and he's like, "Yo, dog, these tacos are for shiz." And it's like, Beast Boy, just because you have that one black friend doesn't mean that you are like kissed in and you can start. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Or am I misreading it? Is it fine to do that?
I think it's questionable. I really do.
Is he? I know he's green, so he's a person of color, but I'm trying to think of my comic history. His name's Gar. Well, it's Garfield for long. Anybody named Garfield is white. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a pretty
Unless
good
you're the
chance.
orange cat.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're orange. No, actually, you know what it is? It gets so much worse.
Okay.
Like all comics, and especially DC Comics, it gets so much worse. His parents were scientists.
Oh, no.
Still don't know what color they are.
Okay.
And they worked in Africa.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and his origin story is that like he got some kind of African disease, and his parents were working on like a reverse evolution or like a degeneration. They're working on like genetic studies or something.
Okay.
And I think his dad figured out like, I think if we inject him with this monkey serum or something like that, this disease is fatal to everything except for this type of monkey. So it'll change him into a monkey, because that makes sense.
Sure.
And then after the virus will run its course and he'll be fine. And he was fine, but he came out with green skin and the ability to turn into any animal. So, and then also his parents died at some point somehow.
Oh, that's great.
Because they have to.
Some like experiment in the lab went terribly wrong or
Are
something.
any of the Titans' parents in the picture?
I don't know, because like look at
Vic's
Cyborg.
dad is a part of his
the
story,
Justice
isn't it?
League,
Yeah, right.
movie.
Yeah,
His dad is around
Yeah.
until he gets offed.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Because Raven's dad, you don't want any of that.
No.
And I don't even know about Corey. I guess I don't know my Titans very well. Anyway, I was worried. It's worrying about comic things. Comic worries. That's what this segment is.
Right.
I was worried about that. I was worried about something else the other day. Is Batman a torturer?
I don't like to think of him as one, but he might be, because he kind of tell me what you know. You know.
He wants to know where those other drugs are going. He really does.
Like he will hang you up by the scruff of your neck, and
Well, I don't know if Dave's dropping somebody like 10 stories and then stopping it before they hit the ground. I guess that's torture, right?
yeah, I guess so.
They always lied over it in the cartoons. I was looking at we're going to be talking about Justice League cartoons on a future show, but I was watching a Justice League cartoon, and it was a thing where he was he had captured somebody. I can't remember who the villain was, but the villain didn't speak English. He spoke like a different language, like French.
Okay.
And he's basically saying in subtitles, he's saying like, I wouldn't, you can't understand me, and I wouldn't even tell you, if you could, ha ha ha.
Right.
And Batman says in French, I can, and you will. And then it sort of leans in, and we lied over what happens next.
Right.
And Batman's got the information.
We yada yada yada.
But
some torturing.
in the meantime,
or something?
yeah, there's some Bat-Pliers somewhere.
Oh boy.
Or there's like a bat rag and a bat jug of like water. Right?
Like he waterboards them.
Well, I mean, that's what are we talking about here, right?
Yeah, I know. He does kind of.
I'm going to continue to be really scary. Like, okay.
I work alone.
I'm terrified.
Yeah.
What if he runs into a guy who doesn't feel fear?
Ooh, that's bad.
Like,
who doesn't feel fear?
Well, somebody does.
Oh,
Now
Scarecrow?
you're testing all my DC knowledge today.
I mean,
Somebody
Scarecrow
No, Scarecrow
expresses fear.
Yeah, he understands fear because he does feel fear himself. I'm sure at some point they've done a storyline where he got
the
gassed too
juice.
much or something,
Yeah.
and like doesn't feel fear. But no, he does feel fear. That's why he understands how to exploit your fear.
Okay.
Gosh, I can't think of
I don't
anything.
know.
Here's something else that connects to what we're going to talk about in, I don't know, about 2 hours if we get this in under the wire. What if he doesn't feel pain? What if the person he's fighting can't be hurt?
Oh. Well, I guess he can't hurt them then.
Right. No, breaking
Fingers.
fingers for Batman.
Yeah.
Oh, I love breaking fingers. Like the hero or villain, I should say, depending on whose side you're looking at, of the film The World Is Not Enough.
Sure.
Renard.
Yeah.
Who apparently
can't feel pain.
Hot tip for all you athletes, pro athletes, boxers, and super spies out there. If you get shot in the head, you become invincible.
And the bullet stays in your head.
Until you die of natural causes.
Yeah.
At some undetermined point.
Right.
Which we don't
in
reach.
the future.
Because Bond kills you first.
Yeah.
But yeah. So apparently you become superhuman.
Just get stronger.
Yeah. I can't believe in some darker version of that movie series, they want the body so they can study it and like do that to 00 agents, right?
Oh, you're probably right. Yeah. Like, how can we make our agents invincible?
Right.
Like this.
Now,
without shooting
008,
him in the
stand
head.
here.
I know, right?
Q, why is there a target behind my head? Now, don't worry about that. I thought we would talk about James Bond today.
That sounds good.
Other than subject the audience to a whole series where we go through all 28 or however many films it is and basically lose the entire listenership of the show, I thought that we would kind of cram it into one show, one episode.
Sounds good.
For a couple different reasons. One, because Bond movies aren't always good movies. In fact, I don't know what the total scorecard says, but they might be more bad than good ones. And when I mean bad, I don't necessarily mean a rating. I don't necessarily mean in terms of crafting and construction. There's a lot of very talented people who have worked on very many of these.
Sure.
And yeah, I think that they're pretty well put together, but you know, they border on schlock sometimes.
Yeah, I get that.
Especially in the 70s and in the 80s. And so I thought we'd talk about that mainly nakedly as a promotion for another show on our network called Craft Disservices, where we talk about films that are quote-unquote bad,
Right.
but really underappreciated. And we're going to talk about 3 Bond films today. One of those Bond films fits that label. One of them is just very good, and one of them is pretty indefensible. And we'll talk about those. Another reason that I want to talk about James Bond is because we talked with Paul Cornell.
Yes, we did.
At CONvergence of this last year, and he is probably one of the big. Well, how do you become the biggest fan?
Oh boy, I don't know. I mean,
Richard Kiel is probably the biggest James Bond fan.
I guess you have to read all the books and
position's
know all
open
the
now.
movies.
Yeah,
Probably.
he's probably the most well-read fan, or at least knowledgeable or most contemplative James Bond fan. He's got a lot of ideas about James Bond, loves James Bond, and every time I talk to him, I want to talk about James Bond.
Right.
But I figured we get it all out this time.
Okay.
So if we ever talk to him again, we can't talk about James Bond.
Okay.
unless he
Check that box.
Unless he brings it up.
Right.
But we had a great talk with him. And a lot of it was about James Bond. And then also, speaking about bad films, we talked to somebody else. We talked to Matt Gamble, who's a friend of mine. He is the... I don't know his exact position, but he basically runs the Icon Theater here in town.
Yep.
He's a movie fan. He has a podcast or two that he is on. He also was a guest at CONvergence and talked about a lot of movie stuff and was on a bunch of panels. And we had a conversation about films and about, quote unquote, bad films.
Right.
And
Guilty pleasures, if you will.
Yeah. And he's been on the Craft Disservices podcast.
Very nice.
So if you, do a postmortem and kind of autopsy and pull it all out, it all is connected.
Right.
In some way. Oh, we should probably talk about the films that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about The Living Daylights.
Yes.
We're going to talk about The World Is Not Enough, as mentioned, and Quantum of Solace. And I promise not to defend my thesis too much in terms of why I think Quantum of Solace is not as bad as people say it is. It's the shortest Bond movie, and so I'll honor it with a short defense.
All right, that works.
And then, just because, what the hell, a couple of corn dogs... Maybe we'll talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Sounds good.
But Ant-Man and the Wasp, small.
Yeah, they are
Therefore,
small.
our review,
Small.
will be small.
Okay, that works.
Did we cover everything? How you doing?
I think so. I'm doing good. I don't know if we've introduced who we are yet.
Oh, well, people don't care about that. We're the Just Enough Troll Podcast. I'm your host, Caliban, joined as always by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Mikan Hana.
Yeah, there she is.
Yeah, here I am. I'm doing well. Looking forward to talking about Bond.
What's your history with the Bond franchise? Seen them all?
No, I haven't actually.
Seen half of them?
I don't know if I've seen half of them or not.
Oh boy, this is gonna be a great time.
But I feel like I've seen a smattering of them. I've seen all of the Daniel Craig ones for sure. I'm not sure if I've seen all the Pierce Brosnan ones. And definitely not seen all of Connery's.
Is Connery appropriating when he dresses up like a Japanese man and then he goes to... Yes, the answer is yes.
Oh, God.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yep.
It's not great.
No, it's not great.
Okay, think about it this way. He's a spy, right?
This is true.
The whole point is that he needs to go to Japan, and I forget the exact, and meet with Tiger. I can't remember the whole plot. There's a hollowed out volcano. It doesn't matter.
I think I saw that one once.
So he's not like, hey, this is cool. I'm going to do this now.
Right.
I love wearing kimonos.
Right.
You know, he literally has a job. He's trying to fool people. He wants them to think. Now, the problem is you've got Sean Connery, who is 6'3" or whatever, the least convincing Japanese guy ever.
Right.
This big Scottish giant. So
with an accent.
Well, he's a mute. He doesn't talk.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's not great. But
no.
Does James Bond torture people?
Well, he gets tortured. I know that much. Yeah.
Save it. We'll talk about it. Talk about it later.
I don't know if he tortures people, but he kills an awful lot of people.
Yeah, it depends on the character as well, or the actor playing him, because there's like, I don't know, there's like one or two kills. I saw an interview with Roger Moore, and there's like one kill in, no, I can't remember. For Your Eyes Only? I can't remember. Where he basically like, this guy's trying to kill him, and the guy crashes his car, and he's on the edge of a cliff, and then Bond comes up, and he's like, I was having car trouble, or, you know, whatever, and then like just kicks the car off the cliff. Well, you know, guy had it coming,
I guess.
But yeah, Moore says like, I thought that was damned insensitive, or, you know, something like that. I didn't do that for Queen and Country.
Right.
Yeah, but otherwise, you know, I could see Daniel Craig just digging into a guy's guts with an X-Acto knife or something if he needed the key card or whatever.
Well, like in the movie we're going to talk about, he has that knife fight with that guy, and it doesn't last very long, and the guy's
Save it.
Yeah.
That's probably the most brutal Bond kill I can think of.
Yeah.
That doesn't involve some kind of industrial machinery or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Or explosion.
That one's rough.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start it off light with some news.
All right.
Although the news isn't always light.
This is true.
Have you heard that Scarlett Johansson is going to exit the trans film Rub and Tug that she was going to be in?
Yes, I did hear that.
Do you know the background around this? I don't think we've talked about this up to this point.
I don't know that we've talked about it, but I know that there are a lot of fans who are up in arms about it because she's not a trans man, and she was going to be portraying a trans man. Yeah. And at first, she was kind of, I don't know if you want to say insensitive or not really listening.
Yeah, insensitive.
Okay.
That's the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
To fans' reactions, and was like, she said something like...
Well, I think she said through her publicist said...
Right.
Why don't you ask Jared Leto and Felicity Huffman about it?
Right.
No, I'm asking you.
Right.
You're the one on trial.
Right.
Yeah.
Although, do we want... I mean, I know we want representation, obviously, in Hollywood, and I know that another thing that was a problem was it was the same director as well as Ghost in the Shell, and here she wasn't a Japanese person either.
Rupert Evans or whatever.
Yeah.
His name is, yeah.
So that was kind of like strike two, in a way.
They were 2 strikes down after the first movie, I think, because as we've discussed, and if you really, really want to, you can go back into our shows and find our Ghost in the Shell discussion, the movie. We talked about every piece of Ghost in the Shell media, I think, leading up to our review of the film. We talked about how the Major, as a character in a cyborg body, doesn't have to be Japanese.
Right.
Like, it's never... Her family history is never dug into. She has a Japanese name.
Right.
But otherwise, the way that she's drawn, like, we don't, like, know that she's Japanese. Specifically, we assume.
Yes.
Although she works for like a multinational group of people that, you know, like a James Bondy kind of type thing.
Yeah.
And so you could have just said that, what I just said, not kind of thing, don't say that, and be done.
Right.
But instead they're like, oh, no, don't, we're being very good, don't worry about it. And then, let's spoil the movie so people don't see it. Then there's a specific subplot about how the character literally was Japanese.
Yeah.
She was whitewashed within the action of the movie.
Right.
So that's 2 strikes as far as I'm concerned. So this is number 3.
Yeah.
I'm never going to watch a movie by the director of Snow White and the Huntsman again.
That would be so hard to follow,
Not
too.
much danger of that happening.
No.
What is it with this guy?
I don't know.
I understand her. It's a job. You, as an actor, you have this crazy self-confidence. That's how you live and work every day. That's
right.
what you have to feed off of. And so if somebody comes up, you have the not correct impulse to immediately double down on your position. Then you find out, oh, no, people hate this. And then you reverse it. So fine. Kind of dumb on her part. I don't really blame her. I blame the guy that's developing this and working with the screenwriter and the production people and putting this all together. Yes, build us 5 massage parlors or whatever. Like, you're putting so much time and effort into this. It's clearly a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how many trans men out there are actors who
I saw some other article that was basically just, here's a list of trans men that could have played this role instead of her. So it's not a problem.
All right. They just wanted a name in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rupert Everett wanted a name.
Yeah.
It's not Rupert Everett. Rupert Evans?
Yeah, Rupert Everett is
Yeah.
Ron, right? Ron Weasley?
No, that's Rupert Grint.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, we're not going to play the Rupert game. Not today. Anyway, he could have easily, and I don't know who's, I'm not going to click on this. I don't know who's the studio or the distributor is or whatever, but like, if he really wanted to make this movie, he could have auditioned for a trans man to play the lead role.
That's true.
And then taken, a pay cut, had half or a quarter of the money that wouldn't have come through Paramount or whoever's doing this, and made an art film, and it might have been a real success. But instead, he liked working with Scarlett. She wanted to get an Oscar or wanted some acclaim for her acting skills, and then they decided to use this person's story, which is just the story over and over again for, quote unquote, these people, and not them getting to tell their own stories.
Right.
I did say that this was going to be fun and nice, right?
Yeah, you did.
Well,
we want to? You also said that sometimes the news doesn't cooperate. So.
It doesn't always cooperate.
No.
Let's talk about some kind of good movie news.
Okay.
Stuff. Still a Scarlett Johansson story.
Okay.
Don't worry, it's all going to turn out okay.
Okay.
We've got a director for the Black Widow film.
Okay.
That has not yet been announced.
All right. So they announced there's a director, but they haven't announced who it is.
There's no screenwriter. There's no... it hasn't been announced. We don't know the plot or any of the co-stars. But it's not on any Marvel schedule.
Really? So...
I'll tell you who it is.
Who is it?
I'll tell you who it is. It's Kate Shortland.
Who's that?
She directed a movie called Lore, which was... she's Australian, and she directed a movie called Lore... which is about Nazis.
Okay.
Can you tell I haven't seen it?
All right. Is that all she's really directed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
To their credit, they met with over 70 directors. Many of them are women. They had it down to... we actually talked about... I remember some of these names from a previous show. Ama Asante, Maggie Betts... Melanie Laurent and Kimberly Pierce. The last of which directed Boys Don't Cry.
Oh.
Go talk to the Karate Kid, whatever her name is.
Wow. Yeah.
Hilary Swank.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we're not. We're moving on. So that was important to them.
Okay.
And her most recent film is a film called Berlin Syndrome, 2017. So.
Okay.
That's 2.
Yep.
Are all your films about Germans and Nazis?
Let's hope not.
Well, it could be. I guess Jack Schaefer is a writer who wrote the most recent draft for the film, although it hasn't been, as far as I know, given the thumbs up.
Okay.
She also wrote the Dirty Rotten Scoundrels reboot.
Okay.
Not the old one. The new one that's going to be the, Ocean's 8, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I didn't say it was a lot of news. It's just news.
It's shaping up, it sounds like. I mean, I'm excited for a Black Widow movie.
It's going to be a period piece, probably.
Probably.
They're trying to figure out where to set it. And we'll talk about this. Actually, we'll talk about it now so we don't have to talk about it later. I can't believe it took 18 films or whatever, but I actually think it's kind of genius having... Now we're going back into the history of the Marvel Universe, now that we've had 10 years of actual time in the Marvel Universe, and now we're going back. So instead of saying, oh, Ant-Man was Gordon Gekko all along.
Right.
Now we can go back and you find out that he and his wife that Iron Man's not the first superhero. They were working in the 80s on stuff.
Right.
We're going to find out that Captain Marvel was around, but clearly not out. We get things like in Captain America, you get little flashbacks to the Red Skulls running around in Europe or whatever. Mm-hmm. But now they can start maybe doing these period pieces and kind of set them at certain times.
Sure.
And also, how's the Black Widow movie not going to be a period piece?
Yeah, it kind of has to be.
What I want to know is, how is it not going to be a 60s spy thing? It should be, it's an Emma Peel movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
When are they going to drop the shoe and tell us that Fury is, in the Infinity Formula and he's really old? Right.
And so is ScarJo.
Well, I don't know about ScarJo. I think she's the normal age for what she is, but but she's got the Soviet super soldier serum, that retards her aging.
Right. Do you think that Clint?
And she's a trans man.
Oh my gosh! Stop it. Do you think that Clint will be in this too? Do you think it'll be a Black Widow and Hawkeye movie?
I hope so. That'd be cool.
I think that would be really cool.
Let's go to the other side of the divide. Looks like Joaquin Phoenix is doing this Joker movie.
Yep. Looks that way.
And it's Todd Phillips is the director, so it's like the Joke-over or something. The Hang Joker.
Did he do The Hangover?
Yeah, that's Todd Phillips.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Dark and gritty, huh? You said before you think we're doing The Killing Joke, right?
I don't think they should.
I don't think they should either.
I don't think they should at all.
They did an animated version, and I feel like that didn't go over very well.
It's not great.
No.
The Why the Last Man TV show is still going forward on FX.
Okay.
Catch this. They have cast Diane Lane as the Senator Jennifer Brown.
Okay.
Who is the mother of the main character.
Okay.
Yorick Brown. And they've cast Barry Keoghan as Yorick Brown.
Who's that?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I pronounce his name right.
Okay.
Because it's got a lot of E's and G's, and he's Irish, I think.
Okay.
So I'm just going to say Keoghan.
All right.
He is an actor that you probably don't know. He is in a film called Killing of a Sacred Deer, which is a Yorgos Lanthimos movie.
Okay.
And it's one of my favorite movies of last year.
I was going to say, didn't you see that one?
Yes.
Okay.
I love Lanthimos movies. I love them. And he is spectacular in that. And it's the kind of role that should have got him a nomination. I don't know if it did or not. But he should have got one. And it's also the kind of role that will have him playing roles like that for years.
Okay.
He plays this gross, awkward, teenage kid who eats spaghetti grossly and talks about eating spaghetti as he eats spaghetti.
Great.
It's such a good movie. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, well, you're the Clint Howard now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Good job, but you're going to play in that forever. And here he is. He landed the hot, sexy, last man on earth. All the ladies want is why. In this thing. I'm so excited.
Oh, that's great.
Because it's not just some doofus, with nice hair.
Right.
Like everything else. There's a chance this is going to be good now.
Okay, cool.
Especially if Brian K. Vaughan is just an executive producer and is not right at all.
Right.
Got him. It's also going to star Imogen Poots, who's been into stuff. She's a girl that's in stuff.
Yep.
Right?
I feel like I've heard that name
before.
before.
You've seen her in stuff.
Okay.
I can't think of anything that you would have seen her in. She was the one girl in the Needs for Speed movie. Do you remember seeing that?
I don't think I saw that.
I don't know why you would. Don't worry about it. Also, Marin Ireland is going to be in it, and Juliana Canfield, and just going to be a lot of girls.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of opportunity
sense,
for
right?
actresses. Yes.
Yeah, but I think we talked about when they first announced the show that that's not going to be good enough for Hollywood, right? They're not going to be comfortable just hiring
one guy.
Yeah, one guy and all women. So we're going to there'll be flashback scenes, I'm sure.
Probably.
In a Lostian fashion.
Yeah, I could see
Speaking
that.
of Lost. Brian K. Vaughan worked on Lost.
Oh my gosh.
Not time to air my problems with Brian K. Vaughan. And then also G. Willow Wilson, moving to the comics side, is taking over on Wonder Woman. She's going to be writing the main title, Wonder Woman.
I read that.
And she's
That's
teaming up with
cool.
Cary Nord, what has he drawn? I remember him primarily from the Dark Horse's long-running Conan line.
Okay.
He did that for a while. I think he left, but they sort of kept doing it in the Nord style.
Okay.
So that'll be definitely be good looking and should be well written.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I feel like Wonder Woman, it ebbs and flows. Like I feel like sometimes they get really great writers on her, and other times it's kind of mediocre.
Absolutely.
And so I'm excited for this change.
And this is not, and I should point out, this isn't a reboot. This is, they're not Marvel. They're not going to go to number 1 again. She's just picking up on the ongoing title, ongoing from Rebirth. So, she'll be fitting her stories into the current continuity.
Okay, sure.
Which, speaking of Greg Rucka or whoever is doing it, I can't even remember what's going on anymore.
I don't know either.
Didn't she figure out that she was going to fake Themyscira? Like she hasn't actually been on Themyscira?
I don't know.
What if I told you? I don't care if she's punching Ares or whatever. It never mattered to me.
No.
For me, she's always, and you can tell me what you think of the character should be, but she's always been the international Superman for me. I know that Superman is supposed to be international. I always loved in the old cartoons or whatever when they'd go, Superman, there's a problem in space. I'll check it out. And he'll go fly to some purple planet.
Right.
And he'll be walking around and some bug with 8 arms is like, and a subtitle, hey, it's Superman.
Right.
Superman's like, how you doing? Like, he's just, people know him.
Yeah.
He's the galaxy's superhero.
Yes.
But not anymore. Now it's all, he's America, and he's walking across America because he's mad about something. He's doing this and that. So, like, Wonder Woman is the person that's, like, is going to show up and save people from rhinos or something in Africa, or she's going to stop poachers, or there's a landslide in Tibet, and Wonder Woman shows up. That's what I like seeing.
Yeah, I like seeing that too. And like you said, she doesn't need to be fighting Ares or whoever. I mean, Azzarello's run was fun at times.
And time's up. So I was trying to just finish your sentence in the Azzarello style.
But the lady whose baby
is
she's trying to protect and everything.
Like, that was a while ago.
That story got kind of old.
That was New 52.
Yeah, I know.
We've been through a couple reboots since then.
I know.
Yeah, so anyway, I'll be checking that out. Luck to her. One more story before we go, or one more little blip before we go. I wanted to say that you asked where Hawkeye is. He's in Spawn. Jeremy Renner's going to be in the Spawn reboot.
Are you serious?
Yes.
What?
You take it where you can get it.
I guess.
Yes. He's playing Twitch. I don't know who's playing Sam. This thing's going to suck.
Oh my God.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Jamie Foxx is going to play Al Simmons or whatever. So
wow.
We'll see.
Wow.
No, the big news is that Neil Blomkamp is going to direct a RoboCop reboot entitled RoboCop Returns.
Oh my God.
And in the style of a Superman Returns, it will be picking up directly from the end of RoboCop. So, nice shooting, officer. What's your name? Murphy. And then pick up right from there. So, no 2014, no RoboCop 2, no RoboCop 3. It's going to pretend those didn't happen and go on from there.
How do you feel about this?
I hate it.
Because you are a huge RoboCop fan.
Yep. I'm one watch away from me calling it my favorite movie.
Yeah.
Everybody is X amount of watches away from calling something their favorite movie.
Sure. Tomorrow
Never Dies, I would say, is my favorite movie if you held me down, gave me the Ludovico technique, and showed it to me 157 times, let's say.
Right.
So however many times you are away. I just invented a scale.
Right.
What are we going to call it? The Ludovico scale. But yeah, I'm like 20 minutes into away from saying that RoboCop's my favorite film.
Sure.
I hate this. It just doesn't. Neil Blomkamp doesn't understand like satire. He said an entire movie about not being nice to foreigners in South Africa.
Yeah.
and treated the black people in the movie very poorly.
Yeah.
Look out, it's the Nigerians. They have gold chains and automatic weapons.
Right.
So he just doesn't understand that. Like, I know they call robots or traffic lights robots
right.
in South Africa, but that's the level of symbolism that he can handle, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's not going to work. None of the satire is going to be there. It's going to look like another 2014 one, right?
Yeah.
In the 2014 one, so they saved his brain and they saved his hand, right? Because it makes sense for him to have a hand. I'm with Bob Morton on this one. Total body prosthesis, right? Why would you save a guy's hand?
I don't know.
But there's a scene where they show just his head and his face and brain like attached to some tubes or something. So did they also, hey, I found a hand. Oh, we'll plug that in later. Is his hand separately plugged into this robot body so he can have a hand?
I guess so.
I think it's time to watch RoboCop 2014. I haven't because
I haven't.
Why would
either.
I? But it might be time to choke that one down.
Oh my goodness.
No, I'm very no. I'm very bearish on this.
Yeah, I know you're not a huge Neil Blomkamp fan.
I don't like any of his films.
No,
District 9's okay.
Yeah.
But like Elysium, Chappie, come on.
Yeah, I know.
So no, I'm glad that he didn't get that. We didn't get a good Alien movie out of it from Ridley Scott, but I'm glad that Ridley Scott cut off his Alien dreams.
Right. Hopefully, someone will cut off his RoboCop dreams.
Put the film down, or there will be trouble. Somebody cut off his what?
His RoboCop dreams.
I thought we agreed on total RoboCop dream prosthesis. It's a show that is just stuffed like a cannoli.
Yes.
Packed full, coming out both sides. And so in no particular order, we'll just get to our interview with Matt Gamble. I talked with Matt at CONvergence this year, and here's our talk. I was on a panel about guilty pleasure movies last night.
Yeah.
And as a movie guy yourself, I don't know if you agreed with any of our choices. Something that we talked about was that, like, yeah, you have to call it something, this phenomenon, but we don't really feel guilty about it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched. I came in a little late, but I saw most of the panel. I don't know. Like, to me, like, my guilty pleasures are the ones that are like the ones that almost no one's gonna agree with. Like, that to me is the ones where it's like, yeah, it's Human Centipede 2 or or things like that. Where like, yeah, I'll go to the mattresses for this movie, and I'll be one of the few.
Right.
And that to me is what I would define as a guilty pleasure.
When people are like, okay, man, all right, interesting.
Yeah, you do you.
Yeah, sure. Now, Centipede 2, that's like the meta one, right?
Yeah.
Where the guy, it starts with a guy like watching Human Centipede 1, and he's like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
We got to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. Like, to me, that movie is such a reaction to like horror fans' reaction to the first one. Like, because the first one's really campy. It's a fine movie. It's whatever it is.
Sure.
Like, it's nothing, but I think the general reaction to it, at least from horror fans, was it wasn't gory enough. It wasn't serious enough. Like, it's a super over-the-top performance by the lead, which is like, whatever it is, Dieter Laser or something, something ridiculous his name is.
Yeah.
And so then it just felt like when he made his second movie, it was like, okay, I'll show you how up I can get.
Okay, sure. I mean, he's done a third one as well.
Yeah.
I think he'd probably want to do a fourth one if he can get the money for it.
I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
I mean, the third one is okay. I'm not like, it's just kind of, at that point it felt redundant. Like, at least the second one felt like you're trying to do something vastly different. It's almost a silent film. Like, the lead performance is almost silent.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel bad for the guy. Like, his mother is super abusive to him.
Right.
and like it's just this weird dynamic where you're like, you feel bad for him, yet he's so crazy that he thinks this is a real thing. And it's, you know, it's ripping on fandom probably 10 years before people realized how shitty hardcore fandom can be. Right. It's like, I think it's kind of fun. Like it's calling out people's bullshit, and I like that's the kind of stuff I like.
It's hard to know where to go with a third movie. Yeah. You look at the Return of the Jedis, or even remember the Guns N' Roses videos of the early '90s, and they had the first two great ones for like "Don't You Cry" and "November Rain," and the third one is like there's dolphins or something like that, and it's like, what? Where's this going?
Yeah, I remember the November Rain. Like, didn't they they announced it was on TV that it debuted, didn't it?
Yeah.
And they made it like this big thing for weeks, where like the Guns N' Roses video was gonna debut, and then after that, you're like, well, what can you do after that? Like, you just shut down network TV to open up your video.
And if it's some kind of like story they're telling, you know, he got divorced from what's her name, so she's not going to do it. And it's like dolphins, I guess. That's the answer. Yeah. So, any other guilty pleasures?
Another one that I am like, I deeply love it is Leprechaun 4 in Space, which I just think.
Okay.
I think that is. It's so ridiculous.
Sure.
It's so crazy. I just love it.
Yeah.
It's one of the most insane movies I've ever seen. I mean, for people that haven't watched it, it opens with the Leprechaun fighting space Marines with a lightsaber.
Yeah.
He is killed. He then possesses a Space Marine's penis and then is resurrected by being ejaculated out later.
As he would.
And that's the first 15 minutes.
I know.
And it's just like, what the is going on?
We talked about like all the different ways that things can be problematic. Like it's bad, or it's like literally problematic. Like, is this okay? Can I watch this all right? And for me, something that combines a lot of those things, being cheesy, being like, I'm not sure this is all right, is People Under the Stairs.
Oh, I love People Under the Stairs.
Which was like, I think at the time, they were Leprechaun was going to the hood. Like they were trying to sort of merge the sort of black audience, blaxploitation stuff with the horror.
Well, and I remember like that came out, and I think it's really funny. Like,
it's a very funny movie.
And I think, I mean, it's Craven, isn't it?
Yeah, what's Craven?
And it was just like, I remember the reaction kind of was negative. Like I saw it in the theaters. I remember when it came out. I couldn't have been that old, 13 or 14 or something.
Sure.
And I loved it from moment one. I thought it was funny as hell.
Yeah.
The Dune guys running around in leather, screaming, and the idea of the guy living in the walls, moving around. Like, I thought that stuff was so neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I can totally see why. To me, a lot of the times with audience reaction, like if the movie does not match what their perception is, it doesn't matter if the movie is good.
They just can't get into it.
They can't get into it, and so they just decide it's bad.
Yeah.
And then those kinds of movies take 10, 15 years before people go like, no, this is actually really kind of fun. Like, I think a lot of people probably like People Under the Stairs now.
Yeah.
But I mean, like The Burbs is another one that was just panned when it came out, and I don't know a movie fan that doesn't love that. They probably can't quote it verbatim. Like
that was one of the that might have been I didn't watch movies a lot growing up because my folks they didn't go to movies as kids, so it wasn't like a hard ban. It's just they didn't think to send me to movies, you know, like you do with your kid. And I think The Burbs might have been like the first movie I saw in the theater. What a start.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks and Bruce Dern and and Henry Gibson. I was hooked after that. What do you think about a lot of the blockbusters that are coming out these days? I feel like we've got more and more of a consolidation, you know, literally with Disney, who owns just about everything now.
Yeah.
And everything has to be bigger than the last thing. And if you get something like Solo, which was, you know, I think it was a modest success, but nothing compared to the other Star Wars films.
Sure.
And it's a failure.
Yeah.
And now all the new Star Wars films are like in limbo, and maybe Kathleen Kennedy's going to get fired. Like, can this breakneck pace continue?
I think that's absurd that she would be that anyone would even be considering firing her.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that has not acquiring Star Wars for pennies on the dollar has not been a tremendous success for them.
Yeah, really.
And I mean, it hasn't even hit home video yet. Like, that thing's gonna sell. It's gonna sell internationally. It's gonna sell toys. Like, they're making money on it. Yeah, maybe they're not making $1 billion on the theatrical release, but like that thing's probably still going to make $600-700 million. If that's a failure, like then a lot of movies are in real trouble.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and especially for something like a franchise, like the movies at this point are they're commercials basically for everything else. But it's hard to explain that to the people that read Variety or to fans who already didn't like the last one.
Yeah.
You know, they think that the edifice is crumbling.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, I'm incredibly impressed with what Marvel has done. Like, they haven't really made a bad movie since maybe the first Hulk film. Like, it's just, and even that, I think, is okay. Like, it's an interesting movie. Like, the way they are putting out 2 to 3 quality films that are at least enjoyable and fun, and they're building this entire universe is really impressive.
We've been talking about horror movies on the podcast a lot recently, and just how I don't know if we're in it still or if there's a new one, horror renaissance, but it seems like horror movies are, you know, they're sticking around, at least for now. Hereditary is a film that was praised a lot by critics, but it seems like audiences weren't going for it. What do you think was behind that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's one of those classic things. Like, when you hear something is terrifying, people, I think the expectation, at least of general audiences, is jump scares. It's The Conjuring, where it's this roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And that is, A24 doesn't make horror films like that. They make these kind of thoughtful, creepy, weird films that are more disturbing rather than scary.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's how it is. But at the same point, like, A Quiet Place, that's a great freaking movie. Get Out is a great freaking movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, Blumhouse, honestly, at this point, whatever he makes, I'm going to watch it because he knows what he's doing. He knows how to make a really interesting film, and he's picking out directors and kind of letting them do whatever the heck they want to do.
I think that's key.
And it's super smart. Like, and he makes them for little money, and so he's making these huge returns.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I mean, he's just doing stuff that's really interesting. Like, and he clearly is a fan of horror, and he's got really good taste. Like,
I don't know about taste, but wasn't that the Ed Wood or the Roger Corman model, which was like, make a movie, make a bunch of money, make 10 more movies. If one of them's successful, then make 10 more movies.
Yeah, I mean, he's making almost everything is under 5 or 10 million. Yeah. It's really, especially with horror, it's so hard to not make money on that thing.
Yeah.
And then when you have Get Out blow up and make, you know, 180 million domestic and all these others, like, that just pays for your next 5 years.
Yeah.
That's just what he does.
Matt and I were on a panel last year, I think, called Superheroes, Rated R.
Right.
And we were just talking about the history of superhero films that are rated R.
Sure.
Which, you, I, the Fence Post, Mrs. O'Leary's Cow, we all thought that every superhero movie was going to be rated R from now on, thanks
After
to
Deadpool.
Yeah, Deadpool being such a success.
Yeah.
And I was wrong.
Yeah.
I'll admit I was wrong. I really thought that. And James Gunn was right.
What did James Gunn say?
He didn't say that they wouldn't necessarily, but he said that smart people will take the right lesson from the success of Deadpool, which is audiences are willing to follow you to unorthodox places.
Sure.
To a second location. They're willing to go with you on stuff. You know, all right, the guy was, you know, he can't really die, so there's no real threat to him in the story, and also he breaks the fourth wall, and so how do we make a movie out of that? And people will, it doesn't have to be tragedy, powers, you fridge my girlfriend, like it can be other stuff. And he was hoping, I guess he didn't make a prediction, but he was hoping that people took the right lesson from that, and I think they have in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. I always like talking to him, and I always like having him on my show, and he's going to be on Craft Disservices again sometime in the future.
Nice.
You can hear our previous talk about talking about bad movies.
Yeah.
About the Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, yeah.
At another time, you can look through our old shows on craftdisservices.com or on our feed at Apple Podcasts. And Matt's podcast is on Apple Podcasts. I think he's got one with his wife that he does occasionally. But the main one is Where the Long Tail Ends. You can find that at wherethelongtailendsaltogether.com.
Nice.
Yeah, so check that out. And thanks to Matt for talking with us.
Hello world, hear the song that we're singing. Come on, get happy. A whole lot.
Right.
This whole review is a spoiler review, by the way.
Yeah.
We promised a review of Ant-Man and the Wasp, and here it is.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, released in this year, directed by Peyton Reed.
Yep.
And written by, well, a bunch of people, but let's just say Chris McKenna and Paul Rudd amongst many.
Mm-hmm.
No Adam McKay on this one.
Okay.
And no credit for Edgar Wright on this one.
Nope.
This is the first Edgar Wright-free Ant-Man movie.
Yeah.
How'd it do? Let's go to the panel.
I think it went pretty well.
You care to elaborate?
Yeah. I thought it
use
was
a
pretty
red
entertaining.
disc on your thoughts about this film and expand them.
All right. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I liked the Hot Wheel car case that had like all the different cars that they could make big and everything.
I wanted the whole film to be like that.
Yeah.
That
was super fun.
There were a lot of things like that, sort of set up in this film, but I wish the entire film had been that.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of people who sort of figured that out before the film came out, because there was a trailer shot of Michael Pena driving the purple car.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
And apparently that's an actual Hot Wheels car.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And
With
so
the flames on it.
Yeah, so they took a real car and painted it like a Hot Wheels car.
Right.
No, they really did that.
No, I get you.
Okay, good. I was making sure. So yeah, I just would have liked that. And I know that they had talked about, I've seen in like set photos, like a big Duracell words like in the background.
Sure.
Like the idea that Hank Pym doesn't have access. He's on the run. He doesn't have access to a lot of nice stuff. And so he's had to sort of do catch as catch can as far as building his lab goes. And so there's supposed to be like giant Duracell batteries powering things and stuff. But they never focused on any of that in the film, I don't feel like.
Mm-mm. I mean, there were giant ants working on things in this lab, which was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I mean, they are workers.
Why have a bunch of little ants move something when you can get one ant that can carry 6 times its weight to do it for you? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
It took him 2 movies to figure that out.
Yeah, it did.
That's one of the great things about this movie, or one of the interesting things, is to see how Marvel is, and the people at Marvel are realizing the depth of their premise.
Mm-hmm.
It does, on the surface, seems like the dumbest idea for a superhero movie.
It does.
And then you start thinking about it and you go, well, if you can only fly and punch things, everything is going to look like something that you have to fly up to and punch.
Right.
It's the old hammer and nail adage. And so, yeah, you've got a situation where it's like, well, what if a guy could basically do anything? Let's see what that looks like.
Right.
You know? And the complications, literally, I thought it was a little stupid, have to come from, I can't get this to work. And so now if everything worked well, this movie would have been over in 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they would have just gone in, taken the thing. They would have had to tangle with ghosts, but 2 people that can shrink and grow and do whatever.
Right.
They would have figured something out. Mm-hmm. Go get Catwoman back.
Right.
And we're all done.
Right.
So it's like, oh no, this is broken. This isn't working.
Right.
All right.
Somebody stole the lab again.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. What's the name of the bad guy dude in this? I can't remember his name.
Walton Goggins is the actor.
Yeah.
The Sonny Birch is the character's name.
Thank you.
Wasted.
You think he was wasted?
He's such a good character actor and such a good villain. And all he does is actually villain. This is my big problem with, and don't remember your point. We'll get right back to it. In fact, this will probably dovetail right in, or we'll shrink it to fit. There are no bad guys in this film.
Yeah, I know.
They solve the Marvel problem of bad guys with no villains.
Yeah.
We'll just have no villains.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd is sort of, he's kind of fighting against Hank and Hope, but not really. The FBI people are all nice.
Yeah.
Walton Goggins is like, he's a bad guy, but they're like killers, but they're not like murderers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are many times where they could have just ran over like Hope with like a car, but they're like, well, we're just trying to get this thing. We just want money. We don't want to like kill everybody.
Right.
Like, why don't they just cut off Michael Pena's fingers like Batman until he starts telling him where the building is?
Right.
The ghost is just somebody in pain who needs help.
Yep.
Bill Foster wasn't ever really bad. He was just sort of like helping out.
Yeah. I feel like Walter Goggins comes the closest to being a bad guy in this as anybody does.
Yeah.
And basically, Ant-Man, when he becomes Giant Man, like, just takes the lab from him and flicks him.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's, I don't know.
Well, he was on a boat.
I know.
If he ran away, we would have got to see if he could beat Giant Man in a foot race. But,
right.
Yeah.
But,
I liked him getting big again. I liked him getting, like, really big this time.
yeah, me too.
I still don't understand the rules.
I don't know that there are rules.
Like, because he apparently runs out of air?
Yeah,
And is that
apparently he gets kind of loopy. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So maybe that has something to do with the PIM particles, which I don't think they used the word PIM particles once.
Which is
in this
surprising.
film, right?
Yeah, I don't think they did either.
Or at least they don't emphasize it. You think you establish PIM particles, does this, does that.
Great.
Second film, oh no, the PIM particles are something.
Right.
And they don't do that at all.
No, they don't.
But like, so he runs out of air. Like, does the air in his suit not get bigger too?
I guess not.
The suit, I assume, is an environmental suit,
Yes.
right? Because if
I
you're
think
really
so.
small, we know from Fantastic Voyage, not Coolio, I'm talking about Asimov, you can't breathe big air if you're small.
Right.
So when you're big, you can't get enough little air, I guess.
I guess.
But wouldn't the whole point of having the suit be that
The suit
The
grows
suit
with you.
has a regulator
Yeah.
that has a PIM device in it as well that
Would regulate
biggins
the air.
or smallens the air as well.
You would think so. And
Fixed it for you,
yeah.
Marvel.
Well, when he becomes Giant Man in Civil War, he doesn't.
He seems tired at the end.
He seems tired, but he's not like, oh my God, out of breath.
He wants some orange slices.
Yeah, I know. Do you think he gets bigger in this film, and that's why he runs
Even
out
bigger?
of air? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. It's not a very long sequence.
No, it's not.
Where's Giant Woman?
You mean Where's Hope as Giant Woman?
She doesn't get that technology or whatever?
That's a really good question.
I guess you have to make sure, because she can fly and shoot, and so you want to give him something that only he can do.
I guess so.
But in the comics, Wasp has become a giantess.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I wonder why they decided not to do that.
Probably for the reason I said.
Probably.
Anything else about this film? This doesn't have to be long. This is the first time that I thought that I felt the well, it's another one. I've never felt that in a Marvel movie before.
Yeah.
I've seen Marvel movies that I didn't like all that much, or ones that I thought, I don't really like where you're going with this. But even, well, what is, the real cream of the crop of the Marvel universe, cinematic universe, the Captain America films are always about something new. They're always going in a new direction. Even the Iron Man films, which were just what the hell are we doing here, guys? They were always kind of introducing something new. And this is the first one for me that just felt like, yep, it's another one.
Yeah, I feel like I liked this one more than the original one, though.
Interesting.
I remember not really liking the original Ant-Man that much. And I know we rewatched it not all that long ago, and it's still, yeah, I mean, there's parts of it are funny and touching, but it just doesn't, I don't know, there's something about it that it doesn't totally, I don't know if it's the bad guy or, who's not fully realized.
Perennial Hollywood bad guy, Corey Stoll.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or if, like, Scott's role is not totally fleshed out, like, it seems like, Michael Douglas is giving a lot of the exposition and, yeah, and all the laying down a lot of science knowledge on us.
Yeah. Yeah,
which
it's a lot
needs to be done.
It's a lot of him, Evangeline Lilly, and Paul Rudd sitting in an old house, talking about things.
Yes, and not doing things.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for this with an Ant-Man movie.
Right.
So, as far as I'm concerned, yes, I think that this film excels in providing you wacky and wild action.
Yeah.
But they spend so much time. I don't really care about I don't know. The ex-cons, like his friends,
Yes.
are back from the first one. Could have easily dropped those guys, but they didn't.
Could've.
They're back.
Yep.
They're starting to grow on me. I think you could have cut Walter Goggins and put a little more emphasis on don't have him do anything bad, but about Bill really like and Hank really like struggling over this, getting over this thing.
I would have liked to have seen more from Lawrence Fishburne.
Then finish that just after the midpoint, and then give us a whole thing in the quantum. So send the whole team to the quantum realm. Like I want to. You've introduced this new idea that is going to be definitely a thing in these this brand of films going forward.
Yeah.
But I assume in the Marvel universe going forward,
I would think so.
you can't do Micronauts. We don't have the rights to that. But you could do something
similar-ish,
Micronauts, and also just the suggestion of things gets me. Like when he finds Janet. First of all, what has she been eating for 30 years?
Yeah.
And where she get makeup? But like you see that she has created this whole Mad Max outfit out of what I assume was her suit just to survive. Like, we're never going to get that prequel movie, and I really want to see it.
I know, right?
What did she do? It looks like she was doing some cool stuff in there.
It does, for sure.
Now we got to go home.
Right?
Yeah, so promise stuff, but deliver.
Yeah. So let's talk about the post-credits scene.
Oh, okay.
I'm a little...
That ant's getting pretty good at those drums.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm a little upset that they disintegrated Hank, Janet, and Hope.
Yeah. He's got to be trapped in the it's tinyverse.
Quantumverse.
It's a tinyverse.
Yeah, there you go. For tiny toys.
Build Tiny Town with me, Dad. Oh, goody.
But yeah, he's like stuck there, and I don't know how he's going to get out.
Time portals.
That's what you've said.
Well, she's like, look out for time portals when you're in there. All right.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
I mean, we'll be time traveling in Avengers 4. We already know that.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about that. But yeah, so that's fine. They had to get rid of all three of those. Here's the good news. The good news is you have been selected. They will all be going forward in the new Marvel 2.0 because that's what Black Panther, all these characters that
had disappeared
are just starting to have fresh contracts.
Yeah.
Are sticking around, and they disappeared.
Right.
So if you like them, it's good news that they disappeared.
Okay. I just don't understand why we just get Janet back and then we have her disappear.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Why not have her? She's not with them that day.
Right.
Maybe she's just cashing in on like the interest in her bank accounts, or
right?
Something like that.
Something,
or just like finding out what YouTube is,
right?
And and then she can be part of the action in Avengers 4,
right?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? What did I like it? Yes.
Recommend or not?
I do recommend.
How many ants would you give it?
Maybe 4 out of 5.
Okay, I'll give it 3.
3?
I mean, that's on the positive side.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They take a thing that in the first movie was like one of the saddest moments, the death of his favorite ant, and then they kill like 6 or 7 ants in
oh my god,
procession,
I know.
And it's a joke in this film.
I know.
It's like what?
It's a total like ripcord.
I mean, that's
thing,
well,
you know?
And that's absolutely what you would have to. Hank says as much in the first film. It's got they're ants. You don't give them names,
right?
Yeah. So maybe that's something he's got to get over, but. We like he's playing cardboard slides with his daughter as the movie opens.
I know.
Like we love the playfulness of this character, and so he's going to name his ants.
Yes.
But do you want to dump on him by like having the seagulls eat like 6 in a row?
I know, right? Antonio Banderas, no.
Yeah. Not yet. Yeah. Okay, well, why hold back? Let's go right to our interview with Paul Cornell, who we talked about, or two, at CONvergence of this year. Intro for Paul Cornell, if people need it?
Paul Cornell is a novel writer, comic book writer, and TV writer. He wrote several episodes of Doctor Who. He's a really nice guy. He comes to CONvergence pretty much every year.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of the con, so...
Yeah. We interviewed him 3 or 4 years ago now, and I believe he talked about how he sort of discovered CONvergence or why he comes. But I think it says a lot about somebody who lives far a long ways away,
right?
But is definitely in America for business often. Who just kind of keeps coming back to this con. Like it's a good con.
It is.
Yeah, and he likes it a lot. Here's our talk with him. What do you think the fascination is with James Bond? You can talk about your own personal fascination if you want to. But just the ongoing persistence of the character, even past Cold War's been over for years now, and yet this character still exists.
Well, I think it's one of those franchises which has almost infinite plasticity. They haven't even settled on the through line of a Doctor Who in terms of. This all makes sense back to back. The James Bond movies do not make sense back to back as a single story. And indeed, where they divide into different stories is even complicated and strange.
Right.
And they seem to have developed an interest in curdling that strangeness further rather than sorting it out, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
They are almost uniquely the only media property which doesn't seem to have an interest in creating a continuity.
Sure.
Which is very much its own thing for them.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that they've been able to change radically with the times has really helped them.
Yeah.
And, I suppose you will always need a commentary on extreme masculinity in the way that the Bond movies tend to be.
Sure.
And it would be interesting to see where that can go next.
Do you think that commentary, we're talking about the films, I guess, was an emergent property? I mean, they didn't initially begin wanting to comment on that.
Well, I'm not sure want is the word. I think it just automatically does.
Yeah.
I believe the Fleming books are consciously, Fleming as a writer, talking about the forces which confine him as a man. Mm-hmm. In that the Bond of the books is a loser. He's somebody who's completely hemmed in by the society around him in terms of every single aspect of his behaviour.
Yeah.
And Fleming. It's always, critics always say that Fleming is reflecting his times unconsciously, but he's a very, very good writer. He knows the processes that are moving through him.
Yeah.
And the Bond movies initially started out with some thought in their collective head of being like the books. Mm-hmm. And so we get a Bond who's immediately much more of a fantasy figure than the Bond of the books is. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, in Doctor No, there are interesting shapes and asides about Bond's sense of duty and how restricted the luxury he experiences is. That goes off in all sorts of fireworky directions over the next couple of decades, leading up to the point where, during the Roger Moore movies, luxury is the whole point, honestly.
Yeah, right, yeah. When before, like, the trappings of his life are sort of the spoils of what he does. You know, he has this horrible job, but he enjoys the dinners and the women and the nice hotel rooms because that's sort of the payment that he gets for it.
Yeah, and actually, there are a lot less women in the books.
Yeah.
And, he's basically got an expense account.
Yeah,
which takes him away from his rather dingy flat.
Yeah. And I liked in Casino Royale, the book, he got to keep the money that he made. So not only was he putting terrorism out to dry, but he actually got to kind of be rich himself if he succeeded. So.
Yeah, but we don't hear about that money in any future book.
No. Yeah. What does he do with the money?
I think he probably started a sensible pension plan.
Yeah, sure.
Well, not that the Bond of the books is thinking he's going to get to his pension, but
he's got to keep up on the payments on the Aston Martin. Do you have a favorite Bond film actor?
I like Daniel Craig a lot, but I think the Timothy Dalton of the first movie, Living Daylights, takes some beating. I think the second movie gets a lot of things wrong and kind of drags Dalton down with it, in that he's more of an actor than he is a lead, and I think he felt it necessary to follow the directions of the movie rather than, as a lead would do, trying to impose his presence to move against them.
Sure.
And I really, really dislike License to Kill almost across the board, including Dalton's performance.
Yeah, it's not very good.
No.
I just recently watched it the other day because I knew I'd be talking to people about Timothy Dalton, who is probably number 2, I think, for me. I really do like his portrayal a lot. And he immediately goes, now it's so popular, I think the majority of the Craig films, he's going rogue. But in License to Kill, it's specifically about the fact that he is going against orders and he's going on a revenge mission.
And that's the first time they use that trope, which since has become the central trope.
That's pretty much what he does.
Yeah, yeah. And to a ridiculous degree. I would really like a spy movie of any kind in which the spies involved are actually loyal to the people who...
Yes.
And vice versa.
Yes.
The trailer for the recent Mission Impossible, which includes, do you know how many times this man has been betrayed by his commanding officers? Yeah.
Bob is the guy who's going to get you if you go rogue again. Yeah.
So I think they may actually... No, the movies have become aware of this trope.
Yes.
I'll bet that's actually the plot of that Mission Impossible movie, though, that yet again,
of
once
course.
More...
Right, Superman is going to come get you because you're going rogue. Do you think that there are any underrated entries in the Bond canon?
I really like Live and Let Die.
Okay.
It's about as an eighth as racist as you might expect it to be. It's still quite racist,
right.
but it's nowhere near as racist as it should have been.
Yeah.
It's got a surprisingly well-developed bunch of villains. The secondary villains, because they're trying to make a blaxploitation movie, the secondary villains get lots and lots of characterization.
Sure.
And I love the soundtrack. George Martin's reworking of the atmospheres, the Bond theme, and the strange presence of the actual supernatural in it.
Yes, right, yeah, exactly.
And Roger Moore in that movie is unlike he is anywhere else. He's a kind of callous public schoolboy, quite a bully. The basic image of British colonialism. And there's something, I wouldn't say attractive, but logical about that portrayal. You know, that rather distasteful figure feels a lot more like the Bond of the books than actually Connery had in some ways.
Okay, interesting.
In that Connery doesn't do the snobbishness of Bond very well.
Yeah.
And I actually quite like the starry, sweet, rather caring and sort of soft around the edges Bond that Roger Moore would later become as well.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It's its own thing. It's nothing like anything Fleming ever wrote.
Yeah.
But it's kind of charming.
Well, charm's important.
Yes.
Yeah. Every time a new Bond comes on, it seems like they always want to focus on getting it back to the books. This is the book Bond.
This is as you read the publicity for every single Bond movie.
Yeah.
There are, I think, just maybe 3 where they didn't talk about getting it back to the Bond of the books.
Do you think that there's a Bond that gets the closest?
Dalton in Living Daylights, because of the fear.
Yeah.
The fear and the anger at M. And
he's very bitter.
Yeah.
Especially in the opening scene, or the scene after the opening scene, where he talks about he can fire me, do whatever he wants. I'm not going to kill an innocent girl.
Yeah.
It's because it's my job.
Daniel Craig, because he's got a female M, the dynamic, and there's certainly tension between them, but the dynamic is altered utterly from the Bond of the books because of that.
Yeah.
The Bond of the books has this sadomasochistic relationship with M.
Okay.
That he's basically in love with the idea of sacrificing himself to do his duty, and M keeps providing him with opportunities to do that.
Interesting.
And it being a motherly figure for Craig, to the point where they become really quite chummy towards him, that just changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah. An underrated entry for me, maybe a little bit of a guilty pleasure for me, is Quantum of Solace, which people were relentlessly bad to, or negative as far as reviews go. And I just think that it's a fairly strong film that had the misfortune of coming after a real high point entry in the series.
I would like to offer you some kind agreement. I'm trying to find... Wait a moment, I'll find something.
How about, it's amazing how coherent it is, knowing what they had to go through to get it made.
I never let the dog ate my homework intrude upon a creative property. I don't actually think it's the worst Daniel Craig James Bond movie.
Sure. Okay.
I'm glad you got a dissenting opinion which you can enjoy.
Well, I've shown you mine. You show me yours. What is your guilty pleasure? It's your Bond film that you can't defend. You just love.
Well, I think the grandiose over-the-topness of The Spy Who Loved Me is slightly compromised by the fact it has a serious idea at its heart.
Sure.
So let's mention Moonraker, where we have all the grandiose over-the-topness without a single serious idea in its head.
Yeah,
I really like
serious
that.
at all. That's true. Yeah.
And I really like its commitment to sheer spectacle for no good reason.
Do you think that they could take Bond back to space and not do funny with it, not do goofy?
No.
No.
Well, I think actually space would have to be a lot more. It would have to be the space that we know now that would have an edge of luxury to it.
Sure.
So I think
Virgin Galactic, we could get a Branson cameo in there.
As soon as Virgin Galactic have their space hotel actually up and running and people have been there, and it's become like the Sarge Khalifa, like a really high-end destination, then we could put a James Bond adventure up there. But until then, it's kind of Austin Powers.
Sure. Let's shift gears and talk about Doctor Who for a little bit. Are you excited about seeing the new Doctor?
Oh, hugely. I've wanted this for such a long time.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get such a big new audience. It guarantees the show a really good new first night.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to change so much.
Do you think that? I mean, you're a huge Doctor Who fan. I am as well, and I think I know the answer to this question. But do you think that they'll have to change the way they tell stories, or do you think that this will fundamentally alter the character?
No, I don't think so at all.
Okay, I agree.
I basically, the thought that the shape of everything would have to be different is a stumbling block. I think that you could really... There are certain kinds of stories you'd have to tell slightly differently, notably historical settings which treat women differently.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Doctor Who has always skittered past his consequences of history anyway.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to make much difference at all. What it is going to make is a difference in terms of how the audience feels, in terms of representation.
Okay.
And I think I've seen from my cricket fandom how once you indicate to little girls that a thing that was just for boys is now very much for them, that the doors are open, they rush in their hundreds. British girls' cricket is enormous, and it's become enormous within about 18 months.
Wow, okay.
And because it's... little girls see something that they were denied and are told they can come take it, and they do.
Yeah.
And I think Doctor Who's going to get the benefit of that.
Sure.
The recent 2000 AD special, which had an all-woman creative teams, sold 2 or 3 times the size of their normal issues.
Awesome.
And it's that thing of, as soon as you tell 50% of the world that they can come get this thing that's only been for the other 50%, you could double your audience.
Sure, why not?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the numbers we'll lose will be tiny. And, I mean, immediately it gets your first night. Then it'll be, as always, how good are the stories?
How good is it? Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure it'll be great. Do you think that there's anything about the relationship between the Doctor and the companions and his companions, or now her companions, that's gone on for so long, which has been grandfatherly, more recent, sort of romantic? Do you think that will have to change or alter at all?
I think you can do both. I think... we don't know what the new companions will be like. It looks like a family. It looks maybe like a bunch of people who'll be around in different roles, who she'll be visiting with.
Yeah.
We don't know anything, but I hope for the sake of the show that there's a horny young man in there somewhere.
I think there should be, sure.
I think there really should be.
Why not?
Well, because there'll be lots and lots of young women watching, and I think the appeal of any popular show for a lot of us includes, cynically, do we fancy them?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think Doctor Who, David Tennant and Billie Piper, Matt Smith and Karen Gillan.
Yeah.
These are
fetching
individuals.
Yes.
And so there should be that element in there. But at the same time, the shorts, what would you call it? I was going to say shortstop. There's a popular older British actor in there sort of appealing to the next generation up.
Okay.
And he is popular. He's kind of the most famous figure in here. He's a game show host currently. And that recalls something from the 70s, where when he was putting a show together, Robert Banks Stewart, the creator of long-running detective shows like Bergerac and Shoestring, would always have a kind of an older man and an older woman who was really famous about 40 years ago in there, so that the grannies suddenly go, oh, Michael Medwin, good Lord.
Okay, sure.
And that sort of multiple level of casting makes me think ensemble, trying to get as much of the audience as possible.
Sure. Never a bad idea.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere after 50 years plus of stories that they can go that they haven't or they should go that you'd like to see it go?
I think there's always new things you can go and do. We know so little about the shape of this new show that it's really hard to speculate as to what they'll be able to do.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we've heard from little reports that they are going to be travelling in time. They've actually, one of the promotional blurbs said, past, present, and future. So it's not that she's trapped in there will be time travel.
Sure. And I'm sure that they'll try to, air out the Daleks and the Cybermen and whatnot, just to see how a female doctor would deal with them.
I kind of hope it would be really nice to do a year without old monsters.
Okay.
I would really like. I'd like some new monsters.
Yeah.
I would like the monstrous shape to persist, but how about since we've got a new audience, how about we leave the continuity behind for a bit and let them. Rather like Christopher Eccleston's first season. I think what we're dealing with here is something that's rather like Christopher Eccleston's season.
Okay.
Where Russell is just trying to hit as many demographics as possible.
Sure.
And not alienate them with stuff they don't know about.
Sure, yeah. And even perhaps, like with his episode Dalek, sort of reintroduce it without necessarily giving you a whole Dalek invasion.
Well, exactly, but it's very much a reintroduction.
Yeah.
And... I think newness all round would be good. I don't think the shape needs to change. I mean, I think the expectations of what the show is need to remain in place for a while. I mean, I can but hope for radical change, for the kind of... it occurs to me, for example, there's no need for a title sequence. How about it looks like a modern drama with just the words Doctor Who hanging in the air over the first shot?
Interesting. Keep the theme?
You wouldn't need a theme then. But actually, we've heard that the new composer is creating a theme, so but that could play over the end titles.
Sure.
I'm thinking, there's all sorts of things to do with the business of making television that can be different. Notably, I don't know. I've already said I know nothing.
Yeah.
But I would actually really enjoy it being on Sundays. I think that Sunday night now is a much more natural slot for it than Saturday night. Saturday night, it always has to do a really complicated dance to find where it can fit in.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And Sunday night is made for drama on BBC One, and it could play in its sort of 7 o'clock.
Sure.
Sweet spot.
I think the only problem with that would be all the HBO dramas that are on Sunday night.
And also, every podcaster I know hates that idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ours too.
So we would annoy an audience of 5 who will be watching and commenting anyway.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks so much for sitting down with us. What else have you got that you're working on right now?
Well, Source Estate, my creator-owned comic with IDW, is coming back later this year.
Excellent.
For its finale. I am in the midst of some wonderful stuff that I'm pursuing some stuff that's just huge and wonderful that I can't talk about yet.
Okay.
What else is definitely going to happen? There's nothing else that's definitely going to happen that I can talk about.
A lot of potentials.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
PaulCornell.com or Paul_Cornell on Twitter.
_Cornell.
Oh, and join my Friday newsletter.
Oh.
Every Friday,
Okay.
I send out really quite a long newsletter where not only do I chat away about my week and about stuff that's happening, but
Sure.
I'm looking back at every single one of my professional Who gigs in any media.
Oh, really? Neat.
In turn.
Okay.
And so far,
How long will that series go on?
a year and a bit.
Okay, good. Okay.
But so far, we're still in the early 1990s.
Okay.
But that's been great fun.
Great. Well, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
That was a great talk. Like I said, no more James Bond.
Okay.
I credit him. I think we talked about this when we talked with him several years ago about how that was kind of when I knew that this was for me, this
Okay.
CONvergence thing.
Yes.
When we went to that panel where they talked about the James Bond books.
Yes.
Very late at night in 2013 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think so.
And I was like, oh, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah, so I guess thanks to him for that,
Yeah.
for getting us into this mess. But yeah, we've definitely talked all we need to talk to him about James Bond for now.
Sure.
But I did enjoy that, and thanks to Paul for talking with us. We should talk about James Bond.
Yes,
ourselves. We should. And we do. Oh boy, do we ever. We actually go on for quite a bit talking about Quantum of Solace, The Living Daylights, and also The World Is Not Enough. So if you want to hear more Bond talk, please proceed to part 2. Whatever you do, though, you should definitely visit paulcornell.com and check out some of Paul's amazing works, like his Litchford series and The Shadow Police, all great books. And as he mentioned, you can also follow him at Paul_Cornell on Twitter. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook at justenoughtrope.com. Also, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Podcasts, and all those places that you find podcasts. If you subscribe to us, give us a review and a rating. We'd really appreciate it. If you're continuing on with us to part 2, we'll see you then. If not, join us next week for some more interviews from CONvergence 2018. And we'll be talking about fantasy worlds and the worlds of role-playing games. So we'll see you then. And until then, keep the geek fires burning.